Have you ever felt like you were struggling against an endless tide of problems, unsure of how to get out of it? We all face challenges at some point that seem to emotionally crush us. Whether it's an unexpected loss, a professional failure, or even the feeling that the world is conspiring against us. But what if I told you there's a way not only to survive these storms but also to emerge stronger, more resilient, and wiser? The ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus developed practical principles that have endured for centuries precisely because they work. These thinkers taught that suffering doesn't have to be a constant burden. Instead, it can be an opportunity for growth and transformation. The key: learning to differentiate between what is within our control and what isn't, while cultivating inner strength capable of facing any adversity. In this video, we'll explore together the pillars of Stoic wisdom that can help you build an unshakable mindset. You'll discover how to reinterpret your personal stories, practice detachment, and focus on the present to create real change. It's not about eliminating life's difficulties, because they are inevitable, but rather learning to deal with them consciously and powerfully. Imagine looking back a few years from now and realizing that what once knocked you down is now just another step on your journey. Sounds impossible? Don't worry, because I'm going to guide you step by step through this process. By the end of this video, you'll have practical tools to start applying right away. Are you ready to take the first step toward emotional strength? Then take a deep breath and dive with me into this journey of wisdom and resilience. And the best part? You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to begin, it's now. And don't forget, if this video resonates with you, click the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel The Stoic Mindset to follow more content like this. Have you ever stopped to think that life's greatest lessons often come disguised as difficulties? It may sound cliché, I know, but there's profound truth in that. When we face challenges, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeing them as punishments or unjust obstacles. However, the Stoics remind us that every difficulty carries within it a chance for evolution. The trick lies in changing the lens through which you view these situations. Imagine adversity as a strict teacher, the kind who pushes you hard at first but ultimately prepares you for something much greater. Think about difficult moments you've overcome. Didn't they teach you something valuable? Perhaps they revealed an inner strength you didn't even know you had. It's in the space between discomfort and overcoming that true progress happens. And the good news is that this ability can be trained just like a muscle. A powerful practice to start seeing adversity through this new perspective is to make a list of recent difficulties you've faced. Next to each one, write at least one thing you learned from it. It could be something simple like, losing my keys taught me to be more organized, or something deeper like, a romantic disappointment showed me the importance of self-care. This exercise helps reprogram your mind to seek growth, even in the darkest moments. Another important point is understanding that suffering doesn't have to be eternal. Often we suffer twice, first from the event itself and then from the negative thoughts we feed about it. Epictetus, one of the great names of Stoicism, said that emotional pain is amplified when we give more weight to what happened than to our ability to handle it. So why not use that time and energy to focus on the choices we still have? By the way, speaking of choices, here's a reflection. When adversity knocks on your door, you can choose between victimizing yourself or strengthening yourself. Of course, no one asks for difficulties, but they are inevitable. What differentiates a resilient person from another is how they react. Those who embrace challenges as opportunities for growth end up discovering that even suffering can be transformed into wisdom. And that, my friend, is a superpower. Finally, remember that progress doesn't happen without discomfort. If everything were easy, we'd never leave our comfort zones, and it's out there, in the uncertain and winding terrain, that we find our maximum potential. So, the next time life presents you with an obstacle, take a deep breath and ask, what can I learn from this? This mindset can be the first step toward transforming your journey. If there's one thing life does exceptionally well, it's testing who we really are. It seems that when everything is calm, we can fool ourselves into thinking we're stronger, wiser, or even kinder than we truly are. But it's in adversity that the veneer falls off, and what remains is the essence, the part of us that cannot be faked or hidden. And you know what's most interesting? It's precisely in these moments that we discover our true inner strength. The Stoics knew this better than most. Marcus Aurelius, for example, used to say that difficulties are like fire that purifies gold. While some people panic or give up at the first sign of turbulence, others find ways to rise again and move forward. This difference isn't in the size of the adversity but in the attitude toward it. Have you noticed how some people seem to shine even brighter when everything goes wrong? That's not luck, it's character being revealed. But here's a truth that might be hard to swallow. We all have weaknesses and they tend to surface when we're under pressure. The secret isn't avoiding difficult moments because that's impossible, but learning to deal with them consciously. When you face a crisis and choose to focus on what you can control, you're taking a giant step toward your personal transformation. This process not only reveals who you are but also shapes who you can become. A powerful practice for developing this inner strength is to start observing your reactions during stressful moments. Instead of blaming yourself for losing patience or feeling overwhelmed, try to see these moments as opportunities to adjust your behavior. For example, if you lost your temper during an argument, reflect. What could I have done differently? This kind of self-awareness is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. Another important point is that adversity not only reveals our character but also teaches us about our values. When everything is fine, it's easy to say we prioritize things like family, health, or personal growth. However, it's during crises that these priorities are put to the test. You might discover that you need to change some choices or reassess what truly matters. And this clarity, my friend, is one of the greatest gifts life can give you. Finally, remember that inner strength isn't something we're born with. It's built over time through the experiences we live and the lessons we extract from them. Every difficulty overcome adds a new layer of resilience to our being. So, the next time you face a challenge, see it as a chance to show yourself what you're capable of. After all, it's in the storm that we learn to navigate. You've probably caught yourself lost in thoughts about things you simply can't change. Maybe it's that unpleasant comment someone made, a missed opportunity, or even the uncontrollable weather. If so, you're not alone. The truth is that a large part of our suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. But here's some good news. The Stoics have a practical and liberating solution for this. Epictetus, one of the great masters of Stoicism, taught that there's a clear line between what we can control, our reactions, choices, and attitudes, and what we can't, external events, others' opinions, and unpredictable circumstances. The problem is that we often mix these two categories, wasting precious energy trying to change what's beyond our reach. And the result? Frustration, anxiety, and a constant feeling of helplessness. So, how do you apply this distinction in daily life? A powerful technique is to pause whenever you feel you're losing emotional control. Ask yourself, does this thing that's bothering me depend on me, or is it out of my reach? If it's something you can influence, like your posture in response to criticism or how you organize your time, focus on that. Now, if it's something external, like another person's behavior or a past event, let it go. Yes, letting go can be difficult, but it's also profoundly liberating. Another important point is that accepting life's flow doesn't mean being passive or resigned. On the contrary, when you direct your energy only toward what you can change, you create space for more effective and meaningful actions. For example, if you've been fired from a job, instead of wallowing in anger or self-pity, focus on what's within your control. Updating your resume, seeking new opportunities, or even investing in new skills. This mindset transforms adversity into a springboard for progress. Here's a reflection. How many times have you fed worries about the future or dwelled on the past without realizing that the only real moment is the present? That's the true power of focus. When we stop wasting energy on what we can't control, we can channel it into creating real changes here and now. And that, my friend, is the essence of Stoic wisdom. Finally, remember that control over our reactions is a skill that can be developed with practice. Start small. Observe your emotions throughout the day, identify what's within your control and what isn't, and adjust your response. Over time, this practice will become automatic, and you'll discover that you have much more power than you imagined, not to change the world around you but to shape your own experience of it. Have you ever suffered over something that hadn't even happened? Or perhaps ruminated over a past mistake, as if that could change what's already done? If so, you're not alone. Many times we carry unnecessary emotional baggage, suffering twice for the same event. Once for what actually happened and again for the stories we create in our minds. And here's the curious part. That second suffering is completely optional. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, remind us that the past is gone, and the future doesn't yet exist. The only real moment is the present, and that's where we should focus our energy. When we insist on reliving past events or anticipating catastrophic scenarios in the future, we're only feeding negative thoughts that amplify our suffering. It's like walking in circles in a mental labyrinth with no exit, while we could be moving toward the light. But how do we avoid this common trap? An effective practice is to start paying closer attention to your thoughts. Whenever you notice you're excessively worrying about something beyond your control, stop and ask, is this happening now? Is there anything I can do about it at this exact moment? If the answer is no, release that thought. It sounds simple, but it requires practice. After all, our minds love to create dramatic narratives, especially when we're tired or stressed. Another important point is that negative thoughts about the past or future are like passing clouds. They appear, but they can also disappear if you don't cling to them. Imagine that each thought is like a car passing on the road. You can observe it, but you don't need to get in and let it take you away. This metaphor can help create emotional distance and prevent you from getting lost in unproductive worries. Here's a reflection. How much of your life have you spent suffering over something that never happened? Maybe it was that sleepless night before an important presentation or that constant fear of losing something or someone. Now imagine what you could have done with all that energy if you had directed it to the present. Who knows? Maybe you would have enjoyed more moments with loved ones or invested in skills you've always wanted to learn. Finally, remember that suffering is a choice, at least when it comes to what has already happened or what might happen. Of course, no one asks for difficulties, but we can choose how to respond to them. By focusing on the present and avoiding feeding negative thoughts, you not only reduce your suffering but also create space for more conscious and meaningful actions. And that, my friend, is one of the biggest steps toward wisdom. If there's one thing life teaches us sooner or later, it's that discomfort and challenges are inevitable. But here's a powerful truth. Those who face adversity with courage emerge stronger than before. It may sound contradictory, I know, after all, who wants to go through difficulties? However, it's precisely in these moments of pressure that we build our resilience and discover an inner strength we may not have even known existed. The Stoics knew this better than most. Epictetus, for example, used to say that difficulty strengthens us. He believed that challenges weren't punishments but opportunities to grow. Imagine a muscle being exercised in the gym. It only gets stronger when it's under tension. Similarly, our minds and spirits need challenges to develop fully. And in the end, it's this strength gained through adversity that prepares us to handle whatever life throws our way. But here's a warning. Avoiding difficulties may seem comfortable in the short term, but it's a dangerous trap. When we run from challenges, we're actually making ourselves more fragile. It's like trying to protect a plant from the wind. It may seem safe, but its roots will never grow deep enough to sustain it during a storm. On the other hand, those who face difficulties head-on end up developing a solid foundation of confidence and wisdom. A powerful practice for cultivating this inner strength is embracing small daily discomforts. Start with something simple like taking a cold shower or waking up a few minutes earlier. These small challenges may seem insignificant, but they train your mind to handle bigger situations. Plus, every time you overcome discomfort, you reinforce the belief that you're capable of facing whatever comes your way. Another important point is that adversity not only reveals our strength but also teaches us about our priorities. When everything is calm, it's easy to get distracted by superficial things. However, in difficult moments, we realize what truly matters: our health, our relationships, our peace of mind. And this clarity is one of the greatest gifts life can give us. After all, how can we grow if we don't know what we value? Finally, remember that strength doesn't come from avoiding suffering but from facing it with courage and determination. Each adversity you overcome adds a new layer of resilience to your being. So, the next time you face a challenge, see it as a chance to show yourself what you're capable of. After all, it's in the storms that we learn to navigate with mastery. Have you ever noticed how the stories we tell ourselves about our experiences shape our perception and reaction? Often, the same event can be seen as a tragedy or as an opportunity, depending on how we choose to interpret it. And here's the secret. Reinterpreting these personal stories can completely transform the way we see the world, and consequently how we feel about it. The Stoics knew this better than most. Marcus Aurelius, for example, used to say that life is what we make of it. He understood that external events are neutral. It's the meaning we assign to them that determines whether they'll be a source of suffering or growth. Imagine two people facing the same difficulty. One may see it as an unbearable blow of fate, while the other sees it as a chance to learn something new. Which of them is more likely to emerge stronger? But how do you reinterpret these stories in a practical way? A powerful technique is to start questioning your own narratives. Whenever something difficult happens, ask yourself, is there another way to look at this? For example, if you've been fired from a job, instead of blaming yourself or feeling defeated, try to see it as an opportunity to explore new paths or develop skills you've always wanted. This shift in perspective can make all the difference. Another important point is that reinterpreting stories doesn't mean denying reality or pretending everything is fine. On the contrary, it's recognizing that every experience, good or bad, carries within it a valuable lesson. Perhaps that romantic disappointment taught you the importance of self-care, or that professional failure revealed a passion you didn't even know you had. When we start seeing our difficulties as teachers, they stop being obstacles and become stepping stones toward progress. Here's a reflection. How many times have you labeled something as bad without really exploring what you could learn from it? Maybe it was that constructive comment that initially seemed cruel but contained a truth you needed to hear. Or perhaps it was that unexpected change that, at first, seemed scary but ended up leading you to incredible places. When we learn to reinterpret these stories, we discover that even the most difficult experiences can be transformed into moments of growth. Finally, remember that you are the author of your own story. Every chapter you write is a choice, and that choice can be made with wisdom and intention. By reinterpreting your personal stories, you not only change the way you see the past but also open doors to a richer and more meaningful future. So, the next time something challenging happens, ask yourself, how can I turn this into a valuable lesson? This mindset can be the first step toward true transformation. Have you ever felt that weight in your chest when holding on to something that no longer makes sense in your life? Maybe it's a relationship that has ended, a goal that has lost its shine, or even objects that gather dust without purpose. Detachment may seem scary at first. After all, letting go of something that was once important can feel like a loss. However, the Stoics teach us that it's precisely in detachment that we find true freedom. Marcus Aurelius used to reflect on the transient nature of life. Everything changes, everything flows. Nothing stays the same forever, not people, not situations, not feelings. When we insist on holding on to something that should already be gone, we're only prolonging our suffering. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. The key to wisdom, then, lies in accepting this impermanence and letting go of what no longer serves our path. But how do you practice detachment consciously? A powerful technique is to do a regular, emotional cleanup. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that no longer adds value to me? It could be something material, like clothes you no longer wear, or something more subjective, like old resentments or unrealistic expectations. By identifying these weights, you create space for new opportunities and experiences. Remember, detachment doesn't mean forgetting. It means honoring what was but allowing it to follow its natural course. Another important point is that detachment isn't indifference. Often we confuse detachment with coldness or distance, but it's actually the opposite. When we detach from something, we free up energy to focus on what truly matters in the present. Imagine someone who spends years ruminating over a romantic disappointment. Meanwhile, they miss out on new connections and experiences that could bring genuine joy. Detachment, in this case, is an act of self-love and growth. Here's a reflection. How many times have you clung to something out of fear of the unknown? Maybe it was a job that no longer fulfilled you but offered financial security. Or perhaps it was a friendship that was no longer healthy but brought comfort through familiarity. Now imagine what could happen if you had the courage to let go of those ties. Who knows, you might discover new passions, new relationships, or even a more authentic version of yourself. Finally, remember that detachment is a process, not an event. You don't need to let go of everything at once or force radical changes. Start small. Donate that shirt you no longer wear, write a letter, even if you don't send it, to someone you need to reconcile with, or simply practice observing your thoughts without clinging to them. Over time, you'll realize that detachment isn't a loss but a liberation. A way to make space for the new and live with more lightness and intention. Have you ever noticed how we spend much of our lives stuck in two places that don't exist? The past and the future? We ruminate over old mistakes, feed regrets, and at the same time worry about scenarios that haven't even happened yet. Meanwhile, the present, the only real moment we have, slips through our fingers like sand. The Stoics, however, remind us that the now is all that truly matters. And here's the secret. When we focus on the present, we create the conditions for meaningful change. Epictetus used to say that the past is gone, and the future doesn't yet exist. It sounds simple, but this truth carries transformative power. When we focus on the present, we stop wasting energy on things we can't control. After all, what's the point of agonizing over something that's already happened or worrying about something that may never occur? The present is where life happens, and it's where we must act to shape our reality. But how do you practice this focus on the now? An effective technique is to bring your attention to the details of the current moment. For example, while having your morning coffee, pay attention to the aroma, the flavor, the texture of the cup in your hands. These small moments of presence may seem insignificant, but they train your mind to focus on what truly matters. Plus, whenever you notice your mind wandering to the past or future, gently bring it back to the present. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. Another important point is that the present is the only space where we can create real change. Imagine someone who dreams of writing a book but spends years procrastinating because they're afraid of not being perfect. Now imagine another person who decides to dedicate just 15 minutes a day to writing. Who do you think will get further? Small, consistent actions in the present build great transformations over time. And this applies to any area of life, whether it's health, relationships, or personal growth. Here's a reflection. How many opportunities have you let slip by because you were distracted by thoughts about what was or what could be? Maybe it was that moment with a loved one that you could have enjoyed more fully, or that chance to learn something new that you postponed out of fear or insecurity. Now imagine what could happen if you started valuing each instant as a unique opportunity. The present is the only place where we can live fully, and it's where we find our true inner strength. Finally, remember that living in the present doesn't mean ignoring the past or the future. On the contrary, it's recognizing that the past teaches us valuable lessons and the future motivates us to act. But both only have value if we're anchored in the now. So, the next time you catch yourself lost in thoughts about what has already happened or what might happen, take a deep breath and ask, what can I do in this exact moment to improve my situation? This focus on the present can be the first step toward a richer, more intentional, and more meaningful life. Have you ever found yourself waiting for the perfect moment to start something important? Maybe it's beginning a new exercise routine, investing in a hobby, or even taking the first step toward a big career change. The problem is that the perfect moment rarely arrives, and when it does, it's often too late. The Stoics teach us that the key to progress isn't in waiting but in action. And here's the best part. You don't need ideal conditions to start, just take the next step. Marcus Aurelius used to say that we shouldn't waste a single day. He understood that time is our most valuable resource and that every moment is an opportunity to act. Imagine someone who dreams of learning a new language but keeps postponing because they think they need more free time or perfect resources. Now imagine another person who decides to dedicate just 10 minutes a day to learning. Who do you think will get further? Small, consistent actions have an incredible power to generate great transformations over time. But how do you start when everything seems so uncertain or challenging? An effective practice is to break your goals into minimal, achievable steps. For example, if you want to improve your physical health, you don't need to start with a marathon. Just take a 15-minute walk today. If you want to write a book, you don't need to have the entire plot figured out before you begin. Write one sentence, then another, and keep moving forward little by little. Each small action creates momentum, and that momentum will take you much further than any grand plan sitting in a drawer. Another important point is that the next step doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to exist. Often, we hesitate because we want guarantees of success before we even begin. But the truth is that progress is made of trials, errors, and adjustments. Remember, even the greatest monuments in the world were built brick by brick. Don't wait for perfect inspiration or ideal conditions. Start where you are with what you have and adjust the path as you go. Here's a reflection. How many times have you failed to act because you thought you needed more preparation or because you were afraid of failure? Maybe it was that project you postponed because you didn't feel ready, or that difficult conversation you avoided because you feared discomfort. Now imagine what could happen if you decided to simply start even imperfectly. Who knows, you might discover that movement brings clarity and that action brings with it the answers you've been seeking. Finally, remember that the next step is always the most important. No matter how far your goal may seem, what really matters is what you do now. So, the next time you feel paralyzed by doubt or fear, ask yourself, what's the smallest step I can take today to move closer to what I desire? This mindset can be the push you need to break free from inertia and start building the life you've always dreamed of. We've reached the end of this dive into Stoic wisdom, but here's an important question. What will you do with everything you've discovered? Being emotionally strong isn't a final destination but a continuous journey of conscious choices. Every adversity faced, every moment lived in the present, and every step taken toward progress is an opportunity to shape who you want to be. And now, with the tools of Stoicism in hand, you have the power to transform your life. Imagine yourself months or years from now. What will your more resilient, wiser, and more value-aligned version look like? Maybe it's someone who faces challenges with calmness and clarity, someone who knows how to differentiate what they can control from what they can't, or even someone who sees every difficulty as a chance for growth. That person doesn't have to remain just a dream, they can be you starting today with a single action. So what will your next step be? Maybe it's practicing the distinction between what's within your control and what isn't in a current situation, reinterpreting a personal story that weighs you down, or simply focusing on the present for a few minutes every day. Remember, small, consistent changes lead to extraordinary transformations. Don't wait for the perfect moment, it will never come. Start where you are, with what you have, and move forward one step at a time. If this video touched something within you, I invite you to continue this journey with me on the channel The Stoic Mindset. Subscribe, activate notifications, and follow more content about personal growth, resilience, and practical wisdom. Also, don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction helps me create even better materials and connects us around this powerful philosophy. Together, we can explore ways to apply these ancient principles to our modern lives, creating a more meaningful and intentional existence. Finally, remember that emotional strength isn't something we're born with but something we build through daily choices. You've already taken the first step by seeking this knowledge. It's now up to you to decide how to use it. What kind of person do you want to be? What legacy do you want to leave? The answer begins today in this very moment.